All right, so 4.4, find slope and rate of change. So finding the slope of the line. So to do that, I'm going to do it in words, and then I'll do it in symbols, and then I'll show on the graph what it looks like. So the slope M of the non-vertical line, so it means not up and down, passing through the 2 points x1, y1, and x2, y2 is the ratio of the rise, which is the change in y, to the run, which is the change in x. So I'm going to write it this way. Slope is equal to rise divided by run, or we can also think of it as the change in y divided by the change in x. So then mathematically, when we actually write it, this is how we do it. M is equal to, so M represents slope, y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And so this is the formula that we'll be using given these 2 points. This is what we'll use to actually find slope. So then if we were to look at a graph of this, or how to find slope by looking at a graph, basically we're going to say that we have 2 points here that are being connected. And so my rise to get to the next point is y2 minus y1. And then the run is this value, which is x2 minus x1. And so this point here is x1, y1, and this other point is x2, y2. And obviously x and y axis here. So I'll do one example really quick, and then we'll do some more notes, and then we'll get to the homework problems. But if we were told to find the slope of the line that passes through the points, and they give us the points 5, 2, and 4, -1. To find slope, we do, I'm gonna label these as x1, and this is x2. This is y1, this is y2. It doesn't matter which point you call 1 and which one you call 2. You can switch them, but you have to call like both of these 2 and both of these 1 and or vice versa. Okay, so as long as you don't like mix them up, they're fine. So we do rise first. So we have y2 minus y1. So y2 is -1 minus y1 is 2 divided by run, which is x2, which is 4, minus x1, which is 5. So then I have -1 minus 2, which would be -3, divided by 4 minus 5, which would be -1. So then that would reduce to just +3, since they're both negative and there's a 1 on the bottom. So the slope of the line for this would be 3. All right, so next we're going to look at the classification of slopes, or classification of lines by slopes. Can't spell. So I'm going to set up 4 graphs here, and then I'll write underneath each of them what they are. All right, so let's see. This one, and they don't have to be in any particular spot, just in the direction that I'm drawing them. So I'm going to talk about what kind of slope each of these lines have, and then kind of how to remember what it is, and then what it means about the slope. What? Okay. Oh. Give y'all a second to write those. All right, so this first one, notice the line left to right is going up. So this is a positive slope. And that just means that m is greater than 0. So if our slope is positive, so our slope could be 0.0009, okay? That's still bigger than 0, so it's going to be positive. Or our slope could be 200. Still going to be positive. This one that left to right is going down is going to be a negative slope. And so that means that m is going to be less than 0. So -0.5, that is going to be a negative slope. -2000 is going to be a negative slope. Okay. Obviously we shouldn't have anything like that, but anyways. Now this one, line going like this, we have is a 0 slope. So that means that m is equal to 0. Now, the way that my teacher always taught me to remember it was if you were going to write the word 0, you would always start out by making the line. So the one that goes straight across is 0 slope. Okay. This last one that goes up and down is called an undefined slope. Okay, so m doesn't exist. So the way to remember that one is that the first thing you do when you're going to write the word undefined is you go down to make your u, and so that it's more up and down. So that's how you can remember undefined and 0. So it's a common thing that people mix up which one's which. So I literally to this day still think, okay, I'm drawing a 0, so going across, that one's a 0 slope. I'm drawing undefined, that one's going up and down, so it's undefined. Like, you know. So that's how I remember it. If that helps you, great. If it doesn't, well, you can just memorize them. I'm going to go ahead and give you a definition, but this part we won't do today. It'll be at least another day or two before we get to it. But rate of change, it compares a change in one quantity to a change in another quantity. So for example, you made $60 working for 5 hours. So $60 per 5 hours, if you wanted to reduce that down, would be $12 per 1 hour, basically, is what that's going to be. And obviously, we'll look at it. But it's kind of more, they're not, I say word problems, but they're not exactly word problems. They're kind of like word phrases that they want you to solve. There'll be like a sentence or so of how to solve those. But the phrase that I always tell people when you hear rate of change, think slope. So the formula for slope is how you find rate of change, just with a word problem instead of 2 points like necessarily given to you. Add lines just for a minute. We're not graphing, but there are picture graphs in your book, so I'm going to go through those and we'll work through those. But basically, you wouldn't need to copy the graph over unless you just really want to when you're doing the problem. You can just look at it in the book. But they say to tell whether the slope of the line is positive, negative, 0, or undefined, and then tell if the slope exists, or find the slope if it exists. So if it's positive or negative or 0, find it, basically. Obviously undefined, you can't. So number 4, let's see, there's a graph, looks something like this. And again, this is all given to you. So this point here is 1, 1, and then the other point they give you is negative 2, negative 1. So just looking at that, what kind of a slope would you say that it has? Positive. So that means a slope exists, so I need to find it. So I'm going to call this one my point 1, and this one's going to be my point 2. Okay, so my slope is equal to y2, so my y value is 1, minus y1, which is negative 1, so minus a negative is going to become positive on top, divided by x2, so that's 1, minus x1, which is negative 2, so minus a negative is going to become plus, so then that's equal to 2 over 3, so my slope is 2/3 for that one. That's nice. Let's see, number 6. They give us this graph. We have this point, which is 2, 4, and then we have another point at 6, 2. So looking at this, is my slope going to be positive or negative? Negative. I guess I should have given you all the options, but anyways. All right, so then slope, we're going to call this 0.1 and this 0.2, and again, it doesn't matter. It's more of a preference thing. So my slope is equal to y2, so it's going to be 2, minus y1, which is 4, divided by x2, which is 6, minus x1, which is 2. So 2 minus 4 is negative 2. 6 minus 2 is 4. And if it can be reduced, we always want to reduce. So that's going to keep the negative sign, and that's going to reduce to 1/2. Any questions about those? Anything so far? If you can tell just by looking at the graph that it's either undefined or 0, all you have to do is say that it is, and then for the 0, just write that m is equal to 0 if that happens. You don't necessarily have to find it if you're given a graph and you can visually see it, unless you just want to write it all down. All right, so find the slope of the line that passes through the points. So these ones just give you 2 points. So like they give us the points -2, -1, and the point 4, 5. So again, I'm just going to call these the points 1 and these points 2. So m is equal to y2, just 5, minus y1 is -1, so minus a negative, it's going to become plus, over x2, which is 4, minus -2, or sorry, x1, which is -2. So negative negative becomes positive, so 5 plus 1 is 6, over 4 plus 2 is 6, and so that just reduces to 1. So our slope is 1 for this one. All right, number 10. We're given the point 5, -3, and the point -5, -3. So do point 1, point 2. So I'm going to let y'all tell me this time what to plug in. Yep, minus negative 3. So that's going to become positive there. Divided by
Negative 5 minus 5.
Yep. So then negative 3 plus 3 is 0. Divided by negative 5 minus 5 would be negative 10. 0 divided by anything is what?
0.
0. So my slope is 0. Okay. The way you would know if it was undefined, okay, because I didn't really mention this, but if it is ever being divided by 0. So if it was flipped and it was like negative 10 divided by 0, it would have been an undefined slope, and you would just have to note that. Hopefully we'll have one of those in a minute so we can look at it. But all right, let's do another one. Number 12. The point negative 3, 4, and 4, 1. So again, point 1, point 2. So how do I set this one up?
4 minus 1? Oh wait, no. 1 minus 1?
Yeah. If you were to flip them, I don't know if you were looking at the x4 or the y4 in the first point. You can flip them and you could do, and we can look at it, it would show that it would be the same thing. If we did 4, 1, and then we did negative 3, 4, we'll show that it comes out to be the same in just a second if you know, just so that y'all can see that it doesn't matter, but yes. Okay. And then the bottom.
4 minus 3.
So minus a negative, so it's going to become positive.
Yeah.
So 1 minus 4 would be negative 3, divided by 4 plus 3 is 7. So it would be negative 3 over 7 would be your slope for that one. Now, I will show that if we were to flip the 2 points, that it gets the same thing. So that way, you know, you really, I don't know if you believe me or not, but m is equal to, so if I did it this way, 4 minus 1 divided by negative 3 minus 4. So then that gives me 4 minus 1 is 3 over negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. And it doesn't matter if the negative's on the top or the bottom. The whole thing is still negative. So that's why it looks a little different, but it still gives you the same thing. So in case you didn't believe me, now you can believe me. All right, 14. 0, 0, and 0, negative 6. So how do I set this one up?
Negative 6 minus 0.
Mm-hmm. Over. 0 minus 0. So negative 6 minus 0 is negative 6. Divided by, well, 0 minus 0 is 0. So what does that mean?
Undefined.
Yep, undefined. So all you would have to do after you do that is just write the word undefined, and that would be what you would officially classify as the slope of your line, is that it's undefined.
I'm just like confused on the formula of it. Like I don't get where the x2 and xy or which one it is.
So we have m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're given 2 points to graph, and so we're given the point x, and they're not they're not written as x1 and x and like y1 or whatever. That's why I showed up here that it doesn't matter which point we call which thing. And then the other point is x2 and y2. And I could flip them back and forth all day as long as I consistently call this point number 2 and this point number 1. It doesn't matter which, you know what I mean?
Just confused.
Does that help?
Yeah.
The scene?
I
Okay.
just didn't know how it was really good.
Yeah. So that's why and honestly, sometimes what I do and what may be easier, even other than just saying like this is 0.1 and this is 0.2, is to actually say this is x1, this is y1, this is x2, this is y2, and then taking it that way and plugging it in. And I mean, I will not require you to write this formula out every time, but that may help at least initially, of just like even just getting it stuck in your brain that I need to like write this every time. But yeah. All right, let's do this. Try this one on your own. So we're given the point -10, -2, and the point -8, 8. So use the formula here and try that one, and then we'll go over it in just a second. Did we get an answer?
I don't know if I got the negatives right. I got 5/9.
Okay. You got 5. Kalia, what'd you get? Okay, let's go over it then. I haven't written anything other than that. Okay, so we have, come back. So we have m is equal to, so y2, so that's going to be +8, minus y1 is -2, so that's going to be minus a negative, so that's going to become positive, divided by x2, which is -8, minus x1, which is -10. So minus a negative is going to become plus. So I have 8 plus 2 is 10, divided by -8 plus 10, or you could say 10 minus 8, which would be 2. And then that's going to reduce to 5.
You see, I just don't know. I just hate negatives. I just hate them. Because it took me 3 times. I'm like, is it this one?
I know, it's always, honestly, the negatives are like the hardest part for sure, because it's like, okay, that's why honestly, like there are some teachers that get really mad if you write like the minus negative and don't just change it to a plus sign right away. But I'm like, honestly, to this day, most of the time I will still write minus the negative, and then I'll make them both plus signs like this, like just in whatever I'm solving, because it's just easier to see, and that way it doesn't get mixed up.
I put 5 and then I changed it to 5/9/9.
I got it right and forgot to reduce it down to 5.
Oh. Yeah. And I mean, obviously for that, I wouldn't take off a ton if you had, done that. I mean, technically it's still the same thing. Slope's still going to count the same way. And you'll see when we start graphing what happens when we do that. But
I just keep on doing that.
All right, let's do one more, and then I'll give you a couple that you can practice. All right, number 18. So this is a multiple choice question, so it gives options for what the answer can be, but I'll just have you find it, and then I'll just show you what letter it goes with. So the point 7, -9, and the point -13, -6. So try that one again. And I'll give you a hint. This one is supposed to be a fraction when it's done. Okay. This one won't end up being like something, obviously 10/2 was a fraction too, but it reduced to 5. This one will actually remain a fraction at the end. All right, did we get an answer?
I got -1/2.
-1/2?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyone else? Or what all did y'all get? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I got -1/2.
-1/2. Kalia, you got the same thing?
Wait,
on -13 - 7, I put a plus and then a negative in front of the 7, but I'm not sure. I erased it.
Okay, I haven't actually worked it yet, so let's find out.
Okay.
So I was like, I really don't know. So, let's see. So M is equal to, so we got y2, which is -6, minus y1, which is -9. So minus a negative, that's going to become plus, over x2, which is -13, minus x1, which is 7. So -6 plus 9, or we can flip it and say 9 minus 6 is 3, over -13 minus 7. They have the same sign, so we add the numbers together and then keep the sign, so that's going to be -20.
I knew it. Dang it. Okay.
That's my bad, you guys.
I knew it too, and I erased it.
It's honestly good. I thought that this section was graphing, and it just threw you in the deep end. So I'm really glad, honestly, that it's not, and that it works up, because that's really the way it needs to be done. But that way we can get a lot of practice with slope before, we go in. Do you have a question?
I'm really confusion because for my first problem, before I erased it and did the other one, got the other answer, I had -15 over -20. So I'm kind of confused why it turns into 3.
Because it's y2, so it's -6 minus, because the formula has a minus in it, and then this was -9. So this was minus -9. In the minus negative, it's 2 negatives becomes a positive. So it's -6. The formula has a minus in it. This number is -9. Negative times negative is positive, so that has to change to a positive. So then it's negative 6 plus 9.
Yeah, then what if you add?
Huh?
Then what if you add?
Yeah, but negative 6 plus 9 is 3. Because if I had a number line, put this as 0. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6. So I start at negative 6 and I add 9. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that occurs right here, which is 1, 2, 3. So the answer is 3. Okay, so we are going to do, your problems so far are going to be 5 through 17 odd. Now, number 7 is a find the error and correct, like correct their mistake. But what I want you to do is just to solve it. Basically, take the graph that was given to you with the points and find the slope. So basically, just rework the problem and ignore the fact that they ever did the problem wrong. And these, since we are going to do a little bit more with the section tomorrow, they aren't going to be due tomorrow. So if you don't finish, you don't have to do them for homework.